Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Premanande Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Harinama Sankirtana Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande.
Hare Krishna! So we are very, very fortunate with us. Today we are having His Grace Devavrat Prabhu. So Prabhuji graduated with a BA in Culture Anthropology with specialization in Eastern Thought and Practice. Prabhuji became interested in spirituality at the age of 17 when he happened to read a first chapter of Bhagavad Gita at his friend's house. Later, Prabhuji received Bhagavad Gita in 2015 in one of the music festival. So after reading this book, Prabhuji went to the local temple in Seattle, Washington. And in 2017, when Prabhuji finished his education, he joined the Brahmachari ashram in Los Angeles, because he wants to give his life in the service of Srila Prabhupada. And since 2017, Prabhuji is traveling in America, out of Los Angeles. 2018, Prabhuji became a bus party leader under the name Nitai Jeev Dayo, which functions primarily to expose college students to the ancient text of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. 2018, Prabhuji received initiation from His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu, and in 2019, he got introduced to His Grace Radheshyam Prabhu, whom he accepted as his Siksha Guru. And then Prabhuji is assisting His Grace Radheshyam Prabhu in youth preaching functioning as Bhakti Vedanta Youth Services co-director for Los Angeles and visiting faculty of Bhakti Vedanta Youth Services in St. Jose. In the summer, Prabhuji conducts Brahmachari training course for students who are looking forward to live like a monk, full-time devotees in America. So many students join this course, and some of them have also joined full-time in US. So Prabhuji traveled in India 6 months, almost half a year, and visit different places, get trained here under direction of His Grace Radheshyam Prabhu, and then go there and preach more and more. So we are very fortunate to have with us His Grace Devavrat Prabhu. Let us welcome him by chanting one time Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare.
Hare Krishna. I feel very deeply grateful and honored to be here in ISKCON of Hyderabad, sitting at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. And whenever I'm in a temple such as my temple in Los Angeles or Hyderabad temple, and I'm asked to give Bhagavatam class, it puts me in a state of contemplation because I consider that Srila Prabhupada is in his room and he's hearing everything that's being spoken. So I'm very grateful to be here, and I'm especially grateful for Anandamoy Prabhu. And I seek your blessings to be able to speak Bhagavatam in a way that's purifying and uplifting for myself and everyone else. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nasupraya Shudabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Ananda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Yasvanubhavamakila Shruti Saramekam Madhyatmadipamati Shatam Tamonindam Samsarinam Karunayaha Purana Guyam Tam Vyasasunam Upayami Gurum Muninam. We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 28, Text number 4. Tyaya Upabhujyamanam Vai Yavana Sarvatadisham Dvabir Pravishya Subrisham Praardayam Sakalam Purim Tvayopa Bhujamanam Vai Yavana Sarvato Disham Dvabir Pravishya Subrisham Praardayam Sakalam Purim Tayopa Bhujamananam Yavana Sarvato Disham Dvabir Pravishya Subrisham Praardayam Sakalam Purim Tayopa Bhujamananam Yavanam Sarvato Disham Dvabir Pravishya Subisham Praardhyaya Sakalam Purim. Jaya by Kala Kanya Upabhujamananam being taken possession of. Vai certainly. Yavanaha the Yavanas. Sarvata Risham from all sides. Dvabir through the gates. Pravishya having entered. Subrisham greatly. Praardayam giving trouble. Sakalam all over. Purim the city. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. When Kalakanya, daughter of time, attacked the body, the dangerous soldiers of the king of the Yavanas entered the city through different gates. They then began to give severe trouble to all the citizens. Purport: the body has 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 mouths, 2 ears, 1 mouth, rectum, and genitals. When one is harassed by the invalidity of age, various diseases manifest at the gates of the body. For example, the eyes become so dim that one requires spectacles. The ears become too weak to hear directly, and therefore one requires hearing aids. The nostrils are blocked by mucus, and one always has to sniff a medical bottle containing ammonia. Similarly, the mouth, too weak to chew, requires false teeth. The rectum also gives one trouble, and the evacuation process becomes difficult. Sometimes one has to take enemas and sometimes use a surgical nozzle to accelerate the passing of urine. In this way, the city of Puranjana was attacked at various gates by the soldiers. Thus, in old age, all the gates of the body are blocked by so many diseases, and one has to take help from so many medicines and surgical applications. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Guruve namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschacharishtarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhavani Devi Dayataya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnanam Daine Pravave Namaha Madhurya Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuga Bhaktita Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Svigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Sadanta Danvanta Harine Namo Gorikishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambojayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virabhava Bhumestvam Nirdesa Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvase Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopeshva Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusde Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarum Visra Kripa Sindhude Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Durgame Patimenantasya Sakalat Paragater Mahur Swakripa Yastidanena Santa Sanpavalambanam Dande Nichaya Trinakam Pariyorni Patyat Gridvasakakam Sata Etaraham Bravimi He Sadava Sakalameva Vihaya Durat Goranga Chandra Charane Kurutanuragam. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, the Srimad Bhagavatam explains what it can do for the living entity. The living entity is transcendental by nature, but due to the influence of the material energy, yaya samohito jivo, atmanam trigunatmakam, paropi manyate nartam, takritam chavipadyate. That although the living entity is transcendental to this material world and transcendental to this material body, asango hayam purushaha, that the living entity is categorically different from this material body, and furthermore is categorically different from the material world which it exists in. But due to its nature of being tatastha shakti, it has the propensity to become influenced and attracted to a lower standard of consciousness. There are varieties of different kinds of living entities, and the Tatastha Shakti has the propensity to be attracted, whereas those who are Nitya Siddha, they are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord, and there's no question of them falling victim to forgetting Krishna because they're in a completely different category of energy known as the Antaranga Shakti. Vande Gurum Isha Bhaktam Isham Ishvaratarakam Tat Prakashas Tata Shaktir Krishna Chaitanya Samjikam. That Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an extended subject matter, and within that subject matter is the tattva of Nityananda, who represents the Guru. There's the tattva of Advaita Acharya, who represents the Isha, or the different incarnations and avatars who manifest themselves in this world. There is the manifestation of Gadadhar Pandit, who is the internal potency, or Srimati Radharani. And there is Srivas Thakur, who represents the Bhakta. And Srivas Thakur is specifically representing the Nitya Siddha Bhaktas, those Bhaktas who are parasads of the Lord, who are eternally related with the Lord in a mood of intimate love and devotion. And for them, there's no question of forgetting Krishna. But for the living entity who is of the Tatastha Shakti, the propensity to forget Krishna is possible. And the Srimad Bhagavatam explains Anartho Pasanam Satchat Bhakti Yogam Zadhoksaje Lokasya Ajanatodvidvams Chakri Sattva Avasamhitam, that the Srimad Bhagavatam is being spoken for those who are ajanato, those who have forgotten Krishna. The Srimad Bhagavatam is being spoken, and it can Anartho Pasanam Sakshat. It can eradicate the different anarthas which pollute the heart of the living entity who's supposed to be engaging in the service of Krishna. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabanoi Shravanadi Shutta Chitte Karanai Udoy. And as Srila Prabhupada explains in his introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, that the natural propensity of the living entity is to be of service. So it's not that the propensity to serve ever disappears whether one's conditioned or liberated, but that propensity to serve is always there. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is functioning for the purpose of Anartho Pasanam Sakshat Bhakti Yogam Zadhoksaje. It's giving direction to the living entity to reinvigorate their propensity to serve Krishna, because lack of service to Krishna or forgetfulness of service to Krishna is considered to be anartha. It's considered to be an unwanted thing. And Srila Prabhupada, rather Bhaktivinoda Thakur, explains that there are 4 anarthas which pollute the heart of the living entity, of which one of the most dangerous is Hridaya Durlabham, in which one has the propensity to become envious of the Lord, or one has the propensity to become envious of anything and everything because they're envious of Krishna, so therefore they're indirectly envious of anything and everything related to Krishna. And anything and everything is by nature related to Krishna. Mayatatam idam sarvam jagat advaktya murtina. Everything has some connection with Krishna. And the living entity, due to this envious nature, has a propensity to find fault in others. And this finding fault, it creates havoc in the life of the living entity, because rather than seeing how Krishna is in control of circumstances due to forgetfulness of Krishna, one considers that others are of an inferior category of themselves. So therefore they should take the role of correcting others or finding fault in others due to an inferiority complex by which they want to compare themselves to other living entities. And finally, there is the propensity to be attracted and attached to the objects of the senses. This is tucha icha, and their desires to want to enjoy this world. So these anarthas, they pollute the heart of the living entity. And these anarthas are something which we need to make an effort to overcome. And in the pastime of King Puranjana, Narada Muni is taking the role of a sadhu, and as the Srimad Bhagavatam explains, the role of a sadhu is to cut. Tatau du sangha uksrija satu sacheta bhutiman sadasya santas chittanta evanti santa eva sachindanti manovyasangam ukjabihi. I messed up that last line a little bit. But this is explaining that the saintly persons, they function in this world for the purpose of Santa Eva Sachindanti, cutting away the Manovyasangam Ukjabihi, cutting away one's overabsorption in this material energy. And this overabsorption in the material energy is specifically found in the life of Maharaj King Parikshit Barishat. That he is thinking that although his sons have left home to engage in austerities, to become saintly persons, that he can go on in this life of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, and be completely happy. But Narada Muni, having compassion on this living entity, comes to him and speaks very poignant instructions which help eradicate this attachment that he has within the heart. But King Parikshit Barishat, being a king, is in a position where one's position, one's reputation, and one's sense of identity in this world is extremely strong. So if one is to correct that too overtly, then the person may not be able to accept it. The Narada Muni is very tactfully dealing with King Parikshit Barishat through the medium of an analogy. This is known as parokshabad. It's indirect speech. And those who are intelligent, those who are of a subtle disposition, which at that time kings were of quite a highly elevated subtle disposition, they can catch the hint that the person is speaking and then inquire deeply into the subject matter. So that's what we see taking place within this particular pastime of King Puranjana. That King Puranjana has gone to the forest after leaving his wife and has gone hunting for animals, which represents one's propensity to chase after the opposite sex and neglect the principles of a pious and mundane religious life. And then after doing so, he returns to his wife. In returning to his wife, he enjoys with her, which then represents the repentant spirit of the living entity, but then the propensity to fall back into that same material enjoyment. And then from there, him and his wife go on enjoying, and their material opulence expands. Stri Sangha. Stri literally means that which expands the material energy. So by the association of his wife, the Pumsa Striya Mituni Bhabam Etam Tayor Mito Hridaya Grante Mahur Atogrihak Sechas Sitapta Vitar Janasya Moho Yamaham Mameti. That Atogrihak Sechas Sitapta Vitar, that one's home, one's wealth, and one's resources in this world expands, and this increases one's identification with the material body. And now we're entering into the section of the Puranjana pastime in which Puranjana is getting prepared to leave the city of the body. The 9 gates of the city represents the material body, and this city is now under attack by various enemies, specifically manifesting in the form of birth, death, old age, and disease. So we can see how the Srimad Bhagavatam, in just one simple verse or in one simple pastime, there's various layers of meaning which we are to constantly contemplate and go deeper and deeper and deeper into. The first initial layer of meaning that we find within this pastime is the complexity of material life and how deeply one can become entangled in those complexities of material life to the degree that one becomes completely forgetful of the purpose of the human form of life, which is spoken by Krishna in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Labbasu durlabha idam bahu sambhavante manusyam arthadam manityam api adira. That this human form of life is very rare, so one should utilize that time only for the purpose of making spiritual advancement, because although the human form of life is rare, it is simultaneously a temporary position. So one should use that time for engaging in the highest activity, which is the process of tattva jignasya, inquiring into the nature of the absolute truth. But through association with the material energy, parabhavas yavara bhota jato yavanda jignasyata atma tattvam. Tavat kriyastava idam manovai karmatmakam yena sharira bandha. If the living entity does not organize any time around engaging in the inquiry of the absolute truth, then all of their activities in this world are ultimately defeated, and all of their activities ultimately produce misery. And furthermore, the activity which they engage in colors the consciousness in such a way that all the decisions and everything which they see in this world is seen through the lens of their karmatmakam, the color of the fruit of activities which they've engaged in, and this causes them to accept a material body, karmatmakam yena sharira bandha. And as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, shariram yadavapnoti yachchapiyu krama ishvara grihit vaitani samyanti vayor gandan ivashayat. Whatever the fragrance of consciousness you have at the time of death, you will carry that into the next body, and that will determine the type of body you have. And we see that in the end of this Puranjana pastime, he's absorbed in thinking of his wife, Puranjani, which then forces him to take birth in the body of Vidarbhi, in which he comes in contact with a king named Malayana Dwaja, who then represents the spiritual master in the living entity's good fortune of having attained the association of devotees. And this is the second layer of meaning we find in this pastime of Puranjana. That despite the fact we may be so entangled in our life of material sense gratification, the association of a sadhu, satta eva sachindanti, can cut away that material attachment. And that's what's being illuminated by the example of Narada Muni. The process of bhakti is a very personal one, because we don't enter into the process of bhakti by just random good fortune. Rather, we've had many points of contact with the process of devotional service. And specifically, these points of contact with devotional service have come through the medium of devotees. Krishna bhakti janma mula hoya sadhu sangha, Krishna preme teno puna mukhya anga. Now, the process of devotional service, the root of it is the association of devotees. Because the activities of devotion, bhakti, can only be performed by a bhakta. So if one receives prasadam, if one hears the holy name, if one comes in contact with any item of devotional service, you can take it for granted that that item of devotion is being performed by a devotee. Some may say that pious activities is what produces bhakti, but bhakti itself is considered to be of an independent nature. So it's not possible for devotional service to have arisen due to any organization of karma or piety. If that was the case, then the most pious people in India would all be devotees. But many times we meet people who are quite pious, who have good religious principles, but due to a lack of bhakti samskaras, they aren't engaging in the process of devotional service. But if by good fortune they associate with a devotee and engage in some type of pious activity in relationship to the devotee, then good fortune can arise in such a way that they become interested in the process of devotional service. Yesam tonakatam papam jananam punya karmanam tedo va moha nirmukta bhajante mam dhridavrata. The determination to engage in devotional service arises in the heart of a person who has acquired sufficient bhakti unmukhi sukriti. And this bhakti unmukhi sukriti specifically manifests in the association of a devotee, and simultaneously manifests in the disposition in which one can be open to a devotee's instructions. So many times if we meet people who are unfavorable to the process of devotional service, we offer them prasadam, or we just simply get them to chant the holy name. And why do we do that? Because the science of devotion is such that when one has had enough contact with the limbs of bhakti, then in due course of time one's heart softens to the degree in which they can receive instructions by which they can completely renovate their entire existence. Tagbagvi sargo chanachap cha viplavo. The instructions of the sadhus will then create a revolution within the heart of that living entity. The point that I would like to draw out specifically from this pastime is the example of Narada Muni and how that example of Narada Muni is relevant to our life. We've understood that the root of devotional service is the association of devotees. And when we understand that the root of devotional service is the association of devotees, that can help us cultivate a humble disposition in relationship to the devotees, because we can understand that the devotees are the cause of my good fortune, and they are the reason why I'm here. And when we have that humble disposition in the association of devotees, that humility is the womb which breeds gratitude. Because if we don't have a humble disposition, then we think, I deserve all of this. I deserve to be treated the way I am treated by the devotees. And actually, they don't treat me well enough. They should show me more respect. They should show me more care. They should show me more love and more appreciation than they already do. But someone who's in a humble disposition, anything that any devotee does for them, or anything that any devotee does in general, that person appreciates very, very greatly, because they feel, I don't deserve any of this. And in fact, I snuck in the back door in the house of bhakti because a devotee kept the door open for me. This is the disposition of someone who has a genuinely humble heart, that they don't feel that they're supposed to be here. But by good fortune and by the mercy of the devotees, they're able to be here. I was just having a conversation with a very wonderful devotee named Kishore Prabhu, who is a student of Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu. And he was telling me how Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu really opened up Govardhan for him. That many devotees, we go to Vrindavan, and we may go to Krishna Balaram, we may go to the Goswami's temples, but we may not feel a connection with a specific place in Vrindavan. We may not feel that we have a specific place that in our heart and in our mind we call our home. So Kishore Prabhu is explaining that due to the mercy of Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu, he considers Govardhan to be that type of place. So due to the mercy of a devotee, we are given a position in the realm of bhakti. So if we have this appreciation of how the association of devotees is the root of bhakti, then we can be humble in that association, and that humility will breed gratitude. And furthermore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that I do not read the book, I read the person. And he explained how Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur trained him in the process of proofreading. And he said that I am not only a proofreader of books, I am a proofreader of men. I look for their shortcomings, and I do what I can to rectify the principles in order to bring them to a higher standard. So if we contemplate this analogy which he's giving of being a proofreader, generally a proofreader is something which is done in relationship to a text. But if we look at the nature of proofreading and the activity of proofreading itself, it's the activity of editing. And there's different layers by which an editor approaches a text. And if we approach the association of devotees knowing that there are proofreaders, that they are the ones that can give us some depth and clarity in our practice of devotion, then that can help refine our practice. So one of the limbs of proofreading is brevity. Brevity means conciseness. It means a writer can write 3 pages of a paper, and someone who's expert in brevity can take those 3 pages and make it very concise. In this way, the association of devotees, if we have well-wishers surrounding us, those people can take the things that which we become top-heavy on, which we put overemphasis on, and they help consolidate us to focus on the essential principles of devotional service, rather than becoming overly consumed in the secondary aspects of devotional service, which may distract us from the essence of devotional service. They keep us with prema in our vision. Brevity helps us be concise in our practice of devotional service. The second one is accuracy. Accuracy is generally what we think of when we think of editing, grammar, syntax, these types of things. It helps, rearrange words, making sure that the spelling is correct. All these things is the function of accuracy. In the same way, we carry various material misconceptions within our heart and within our mind that we've carried for many, many lives. And we carry those misconceptions and we carry those conditionings into the process of devotional service, and that obstructs our ability to actually make progress on the path of devotion. So the devotees, they can help eradicate those misconceptions by speaking the clear and unadulterated truth. And when that clear and unadulterated truth enters our heart, Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Hirantyasto hi Badrani Vidu Noti Saritsatam. Krishna from within the heart, seeing our genuine desire to develop a pure conception, to be extremely accurate in our process of devotional service, personally takes charge of purifying our heart. And the third point is clarity. So clarity makes sure that we may have an understanding of what devotion is, and we may be enthusiastic in our process of devotion. But there's certain subtleties in relationship to associating with the devotees in terms of culture and sadachar, which, although we may be enthusiastic, although we may be extremely eager to engage in a particular service, if we're not sensitive to the subtleties of devotee association and not sensitive to the subtleties of Vaishnava culture, there's a way in which, instead of actually making advancement in the process of devotional service, we can actually digress in our practice of devotion. So the devotees help us become refined in that activity and helps give us clarity to our practice of devotion. And the fourth point of editing is potency. And potency means that when the writer is writing, what is the impact it has on the heart of the reader? What emotions does it bring out? So in the same way, there's a likelihood that we could be engaging in the practice of devotional service properly. We could be doing everything that we're supposed to be doing, but the potency may not be reaching the heart of an audience, or maybe not reaching the depth of our heart, because we may need to become a bit more dynamic in our understanding of Krishna consciousness and expand our mind as to how we can reach more and more people and how we can have a deeper effect on the process of devotion rather than just getting stuck into the habit of niyamagraha, performing the practices of devotion without the proper attention and consciousness which needs to be invested in it. So in this way, the pastime of Puranjana, it gives us various lessons, but the lesson which strikes me the most is how Puranjana is representing Maharaj King Parichaya Barisat, and Narada Muni is proofreading the life of Maharaj King Parichaya Barisat. And the lesson for us is that we should never think we've become so advanced that we can't have proofreaders in our life. We should always be very eager to have those who can surround us and edit us and lift us to a higher standard so we can have a more clear, concise, and accurate practice of Krishna consciousness. So that practice of Krishna consciousness can have a greater effect on our heart and the hearts of those we come in contact with, which will then expand the movement of Krishna consciousness more and more and more. So it's 9 o'clock now, and I wanted to make sure that I leave time for questions. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to open it up. And if you don't have any questions, you can also give a reflection. This is something my Guru Maharaj does. And this just helps us go deeper into the topic rather than it just being quiet after a class and then we all go take prasadam. Because Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to be parasparanu katanam. We're meant to discuss it in association, not just one person speaking, but it's meant to be a discussion in which we go deeper and deeper into the subject and find deeper and deeper layers of meaning for our own purification and upliftment. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavad Pranam. Prabhu, you raised an important point that we should be surrounded by people who can actually correct us and uplift us. Now, finding such people and also, ourselves, our own ego is always troubling us. If somebody is better than us, it is how do we identify who are better than us and surround them around us so that we can become better.
Like I said, it's important that we cultivate through practice a disposition of humility. And a disposition of humility means I live to be corrected. That's the meaning of humility, that I live to be corrected, and simultaneously I don't expect anything from anyone. If we have expectations from people, then generally that indicates that we have a sense of identity in which we deserve something from the world. But actually, we don't deserve anything because we're not the enjoyer. We are to be enjoyed and we are to be of service. So we don't deserve anything, but we are meant to give that which is of value to those who deserve it. And those who deserve it is the Vaishnavas, Guru, and Krishna. So if we can shift our mentality, if we can undergo a transformation of our consciousness, and this is the whole point of devotional service, is that there should be viplava, there should be a revolution in which we're transitioning from a position of thinking that I am the center and I am the enjoyer, to Krishna is the center and he's the enjoyer and I'm meant to be of service. So that's the first point which needs to be established within our heart. The second point is, and this was another point I wanted to get to in the class that I was thinking of in relationship to this text, is we should try to make hay while the sun is out. This is something my Sankirtan leader often tells me in relationship to being young, that we shouldn't wait to become eager for Krishna consciousness. Krishna bhakti bhavatamati kriyatam yati katopi labhyate tatarloyam apimulyam ekalam janmakoti shrikartarna labhyate. We should have some greed to want to make advancement in Krishna consciousness. And however we need to become greedy, akama sarva karmo va moksha kama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajata purusam param. That Prahlad Maharaj, although he desired a kingdom greater than his father, his intensity of purpose to want to become Krishna conscious, to want to have darshan of Narayana, was so powerful that it manifested the association of Narada Muni. So we have to be humble, and simultaneously we have to have some eagerness. We have to cultivate a Katvanga Maharaj consciousness. We shouldn't think that I have time for any other benediction. That was the mood of Maharaj Katvanga. He asked, before he received his benediction, he asked, how long do I have to live? And they said, 2 minutes. And after he heard 2 minutes, he said, I don't want anything. I just want to remember the lotus feet of Lord Narayana. So if we think we have time for anything else, then generally we tend to become laxed in our practice of devotional service and we lose the edge. So oftentimes we put ourselves in situations and where we try to take the edge off. This is a saying in English, that take the edge off. It means we relax, we take up a disposition of comfort, we take up a disposition of enjoyment. But as one of my friends that I grew up with used to tell me, that he was someone that, although we grew up in America, generally in America you're surrounded by intoxication. He was someone that made a point to not take intoxication. So whenever he was asked about this, he would say, I don't take intoxication because it takes the edge off, and I want the edge because the edge sharpens me. So material enjoyment is also a kind of intoxication, and in the practice of devotional service, we can fall victim to an enjoying mentality for the sake of taking the edge off. But actually, we should feel the urgency of Krishna consciousness. If we feel the urgency of Krishna consciousness and we simultaneously have a humble disposition, upadrastanumantam cha bharta bhokta maheshwaram, parameti pachapiyukto dehi sim purusapara. Krishna says, I'm seated in the heart of the living entity, functioning as the overseer and the permitter. So if he sees that intensity of purpose, if he sees that intensity of desire to want to be Krishna conscious, he will surround us in the association of well-wishers. He will surround us in the association of proofreaders who will point out exactly what we need to hear in order to make further progress. Is that okay? Anything else? We have 5 minutes. Reflection? Comment? Chastisement? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat. Prabhuji, in the association, if we are in the association, then we can practice Krishna consciousness very nicely. Then our senses, all the senses are in control, and we are able to do chant, reading, taking prasadam, everything will be fine. But if we go outside, means if we are traveling, whenever we are not in the association of devotees, if we go traveling or staying away from the temple, at that time, even though we practice Krishna consciousness very nicely in the association of devotees, but if we go outside, like traveling or staying in the home, at that time the senses will overcome, will dominate in that situation. So how to maintain that stableness as we maintain in the association of devotees while we are not in that, how to control that senses and in that situation.
Whenever we have to be put into such situations, it gives us an opportunity to reflect on how deeply are we actually associating with devotees. Just like after a good kirtan, the kirtan keeps going in your heart and mind. The dhvani keeps reverberating through your entire being. In the same way, the dhvani of the association of devotees should carry us to a certain distance if for whatever reason we have to be out of association. So when we leave association for practical purposes or out of a sense of duty to see family or relatives, we can see it as a test. How deeply am I actually taking advantage of the association of devotees? Because of course, the quality of our Krishna consciousness will go down outside of the association of devotees. But it shouldn't go down that much. If it's going down that much, then it means we're seeing the association of devotees as more of a social club, rather than an opportunity to make spiritual advancement. So what I suggest is that even in the midst of the association of devotees, we should create a strong habit of regularly reading Srila Prabhupada's books for prolonged periods of time. If this is part of our life, if it's a constant in our life, then even when we're outside of the association of devotees, we'll be taking advantage of Prabhupada's books. When I first joined, my circumstance was I was in college, and I wasn't in a college in which there was a voice center. I was living by myself, away from the temple, and on the weekend I would go visit the devotees. Anywhere from like Friday until Monday morning, I would just be at the temple, and then the rest of the week I had my school that I had to attend to. But I learned very quickly, due to the mercy of devotees, that if I read Srila Prabhupada's books, Srila Prabhupada will be there to give me his association. So unless we are having an experience of that in the association of devotees, it can be difficult to relate with later on. This was another point I was actually thinking about, is that if we don't make hay while the sun's out, I'll explain what that saying means, is that while you're young, you should work hard to become Krishna conscious. Because when you become old, it's not going to be as easy as you think it's going to be. It's not going to be in a walk in a park in which you just automatically become a Paramahamsa because you're 65 plus chanting Hare Krishna. That's not how it works. But rather, one should make hay while the sun's out. One should work extremely hard to become Krishna conscious while they're young. And then when one becomes old and the body goes through the dwindling stage, one will be living in the memory of that practice of Krishna consciousness, and one will also be able to take advantage of the yoga balena, the strength of practice that they've accumulated over the course of many years. My Guru Maharaj tells a story about a godbrother who, for one reason or another, left the association of devotees, unfortunately. And then when he was nearing the end of his life, he started kind of associating again. But it was really, really difficult. And he found himself in a hospital bed due to some sickness that he had in which he was going to die. And his godbrother came and visited him, and he was sitting in the hospital bed watching television. And so his godbrother said, "We got to get you out of here." So he brought him out, and then he flew him to Vrindavan. But unfortunately, this devotee, when they got to Vrindavan, he couldn't relate with it. So if we're having difficulty with our chanting now, if we're having difficulty with our reading now, it's a great opportunity for us to refine it while we have the strength and vigor and health of being young. Because when we're old, it may not be so easy to rectify. And as this devotee had difficulty relating with Vrindavan, in the same way, if we don't take the reading of Srila Prabhupada's book seriously now, we may find it difficult to relate with when we're old. So we have to make hay while the sun's out. As you're young, as you have energy, as you have vigor, utilize that youth for Komaro Machare Pragno Dharman Bhagavatam Iha, for becoming Krishna conscious and systematically and carefully applying the principles of Krishna consciousness in your youth so you can take shelter of that when you're old. Whenever I go visit my grandparents, they're becoming extremely old now. They're reaching their 90s this year or in the next couple of years. I make it a point to go visit them once a year because they appreciate my coming. But one thing that I notice is that when they're in old age, their body, it's full of difficulties. They don't have so much energy. But the thing which brings them the most joy, I have found, is the memories that they have. They live in their memories. So I had this realization that if we fill our life with going to the Dham, if we fill our life with associating with the devotees, if we fill our life with the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discussed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, then when we're grand old men, we'll be living in the memories of our practice of Krishna consciousness. And that will act as a nudipana to bring about deeper and deeper feelings of appreciation and dependence on Krishna. So we have to make hay while the sun's out. And we can see that whenever we're going to visit our parents, it's a type of death. We get to see, how ready am I? Yam yam vapi smanam bhavam tajantante kalevaram tam tam eveti konteya tad baba baba babita. That when I leave the association of devotees, it's a mini death. What am I bringing with me when I leave that association? Hare Krishna. So it's 9:13. I don't want to make all of you angry at me. So please take prasadam, and thank you very much for being so patient and listening to me speak. Hare Krishna. Vansha kalpatarumbhischa kripa sindhueva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Dai Gaura Premanande.